Richard, my boy, your time is down on the little Mignonette. The boat was just shattered, gone in history. They really force us to question the very definition of right and wrong. They put us in these situations that are so extreme, we have to ask ourselves some really uncomfortable questions.
And that's the question at the very heart of this story. It's a true story, and it is as disturbing as it is absolutely fascinating. So what we're going to do is lay out the facts, the choices, and of course the consequences. And at the end of it all, well, you'll be the judge.
All right, so let's go all the way back to the beginning. Our story kicks off in 1883 with a yacht called the Mignonette, and a journey that a lot of people thought was just completely doomed from the start.
Now, what's so wild here is the boat itself. See, the Mignonette, it wasn't some rugged ship built for crossing oceans. Nope, it was more of a pleasure craft, designed for short little trips. But its new owner, a lawyer from Australia, had to get it all the way home, and finding a crew willing to take on that kind of risk, well, that was a huge problem. Just try to wrap your head around that distance. 26,000 kilometers. It is an absolutely immense and dangerous journey across some of the world's most unpredictable oceans, in a boat that was just not built for it. It actually took nearly a full year just to find a captain who was brave enough, or maybe just desperate enough to take the job. So let's meet the guys who signed up. You've got Tom Dudley, a really seasoned captain, 30+ years of experience. He's got 2 trained sailors with him, Edwin Stephens and Edmund Brooks. And then there was Richard Parker. And Richard was just a kid, only 17 years old, an orphan, and he had practically zero sailing experience. So on May 19th, 1884, they head out. And young Richard Parker, he wasn't there for the money or some big adventure. He was there because he came from a long line of sailors, and he felt this duty, to carry on that family tradition. It was a decision that would, tragically, seal his fate. So for the first 45 days, the trip was tough, for sure, but they were managing. But then, as they got near the coast of South Africa, thousands of kilometers from any scrap of land, their impossible journey took an absolutely catastrophic turn. The sky just turned black. And this monstrous wave, like a wall of water, just came crashing down on the little Mignonette. The boat was just shattered, gone in an instant. Captain Dudley knew it was over. He screamed the order to abandon ship. They somehow managed to scramble onto this flimsy little 13-foot lifeboat, basically a tiny dinghy, in the middle of a vast, raging ocean. They had no water, almost no food. Their entire world had just shrunk to this tiny, fragile raft.
2. That was it. That was the number of cans of food they managed to grab on the way out. 2 small tins of turnips. That was all that stood between 4 grown men and certain starvation.
And this timeline, wow, it just shows how fast things fell apart. After just 10 days, the turnips were gone. They got a lucky break and caught a small sea turtle, which kept them going for another few days. But by day 18, they were so overcome with thirst, they started drinking their own urine. And then, Richard Parker made a fatal mistake. Out of pure desperation, he started drinking seawater. The salt just poisoned his system, and he got sick, really fast. So as Parker is lying there, basically dying, the other 3 men are fading fast too. They're starving, they're dehydrated, they're completely hopeless. And it was in this moment that this horrific idea started to take root in Captain Dudley's mind.
And there it was, the choice, just laid bare in all its brutal simplicity. Do they all just sit there and wait to die? Or does one person die so that the others might have a chance, just a chance to live? This wasn't some philosophy problem. This was their reality.
It was Dudley who finally voiced the unspeakable. He proposed that they should draw lots, pull straws, to see who should be sacrificed. A deep, terrible silence just fell over that little boat as the other men contemplated the absolute unthinkable. Brooks flat out refused, but Stephens, he was wavering. But then, Dudley changed the plan. There wasn't gonna be any drawing of lots. He pointed to young Richard Parker. I mean, the logic was just chilling. The boy was the weakest. He was probably gonna die soon anyway. Plus, he was an orphan. No wife, no kids waiting for him. The grim thinking was that his death would be the smallest loss. So, on the morning of July 24th, Dudley saw that Parker was in a coma. He said a prayer, asking for forgiveness for what he was about to do. He then leaned over the boy, put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Richard, my boy, your time has come." And with his penknife, he ended the boy's life. For the next 5 days, the 3 survivors fed on his body and drank his blood.
5 days after that horrific act, on July 29th, a miracle. Against all possible odds, a German ship spotted their tiny lifeboat. Their ordeal at sea was finally over, but a brand new one was just about to begin.
When they were rescued, the evidence of what they had done was, well, it was unmistakable. Now, Dudley could have easily lied. He could have claimed Parker died from drinking the seawater and they were just forced to eat him to survive. But he didn't. He walked right into the customs house and confessed every single detail, determined to face whatever the law threw at him.
At first, the public was overwhelmingly on their side. People saw this as a tragic but necessary act of survival, a grim custom that sailors called the law of the sea. And in this incredible show of grace, Richard Parker's own older brother actually visited the men and shook their hands, showing them forgiveness.
But the authorities, they couldn't just let it go. The case went to trial, and it set up this monumental clash. On one side, you had the unwritten rule of survival at sea, and on the other, the unshakable law of the land that says murder is murder. The 5 judges delivered a ruling that would become a cornerstone of common law, one that's still cited today. They established a powerful legal precedent. Necessity is not a defense for murder. They argued that being hungry just can't justify killing another human being, and allowing it would be a very dangerous slippery slope. What's more, they said the crew's duty was actually to protect the weakest among them, the cabin boy, not sacrifice him. And maybe most importantly, who was to say they wouldn't have been rescued the very next day, with all 4 of them still alive?
So the verdict was stunning. Dudley and Stephens were found guilty of murder. And the sentence was the harshest one possible, death by hanging. The law had made its stand, choosing principle over the desperate circumstances.
But public opinion was powerful. The outcry against the verdict was so huge that the government and eventually Queen Victoria herself got involved. And in an act of royal mercy, that death sentence was changed. Their final punishment? Just 6 months in prison.
And so, we end up right back where we started. Dudley and Stephens served 6 months for an act that saved their lives but took another's. So, was it a necessary evil or was it cold-blooded murder? Was the final sentence a compassionate compromise or was it a total failure of justice? The law gave its answer. History recorded the facts. But the moral question, well, that one is left for you.